You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions at theoptionsinsider.com. Bitcoin, Ether, Ripple, Litecoin, and more. Cryptocurrencies and other digital assets are taking the financial world by storm. This exploding market provides everything a savvy trader needs: volatility, volume, and liquidity. Provided you know how to find it. That's where we come in. Welcome to the Crypto Rundown. Each week, we'll break down the latest trading activity, trends, and developments on everything from coins to tokens, futures, and even OTC options. If it's moving the crypto markets, then you'll find it on the Crypto Rundown. This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVol, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVol Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. Now it's time to dive into the exploding world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time for the Crypto Rundown.
All right, everybody. That music means it is time once again for the Crypto Rundown, the program here on the Options Insider Radio Network, where we go beyond our traditional stomping grounds of your SPY and Apple and VIX and Tesla options and see what's going on a little bit further afield over there in the crypto side of the space. Going to talk about some volatility, some volume, some SKEW and ETH and Bitcoin and a whole bunch more. My name is Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as, of course, from the ever exciting, at least we think so, Options Insider Radio Network. There are a legion, a plethora of ways for you folks to get this content now. It's pretty much available on demand on just about every platform under the sun. There's new ones hitting me up literally as we speak. I was looking at my email right before showtime. There's a new platform just about every day. It's amazing how many new on-demand audio platforms are springing up these days. So we're on most of them. If not, hit us up, let us know, or let them know. They'll probably add our stuff for us over there. Of course, if you want to get at the live and access to shows immediately and ask questions of the guests and of the hosts, theoptionsinsider.com/plus is the way to go. Easy for me to say. And of course, if you want to go above and beyond, get access to the exclusive programs. If you like this show, and I think you're listening to it, so you must, the founders of Genesis Vol are sponsors over there. And of course, the creators of a great analytics suite called GVol, going to be answering all your questions about all things crypto derivatives tomorrow in our pro Q&A session. If you want to get at that, theoptionsinsider.com/pro is the place to go. And however you listen live after the fact, make sure you hit us up. Questions, comments, insights, pearls of wisdom. We do love to hear from all of you guys and gals out there. Let's see who we're hearing from on the show today. It is time to roll out the Crypto Hot Seat.
Forget about cold storage. It's time to turn up the heat on thought leaders from the world of cryptocurrencies and digital assets. It's time to take their place on the Crypto Hot Seat.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Crypto Hot Seat, the portion of the show where we welcome on people from throughout the world of crypto derivatives and indeed beyond, and proceed to pick their brains for the benefit of you, the listener. And today's guest is surprisingly a newcomer to the network. Can't believe we haven't had her on before. That's an oversight on our part, but we're making up for it now. Pleased to welcome on Ms. RUMI Morales, the partner and board member over there at OUTLIER Ventures, also a host of a show you may be familiar with called Open Outcry Crypto. Rumi, welcome to the Crypto Rundown program. Hard to believe we haven't had you on the network.
I know, but I know you were saving the best things for last or later, weren't you?
That's exactly,
Is that why you kept me away?
That's exactly what we were doing all this time. Well, Rumi, like I said, I've known you, it seems like for ages now, but this is your first appearance on the network. So why don't you go ahead and give our audience a bit of an overview of your background in fintech and indeed the crypto space, as well as what it is you do day to day over there at OUTLIER Ventures.
Sure. Well, I first have to say that I think I grew like 5 inches of muscle there just listening to all that music. The music you have makes me feel all powerful.
Get you pumped up. Get you pumped up for the show.
It really does. Yeah, so I've been in the fintech space. I guess you can call crypto a fintech, although as we know, there's so many more applications to it besides financial services. But I really started on this journey when I was at the CME Group. Around 2013, the board of directors at the CME launched a venture capital initiative focused on financial technology innovation. And I think I was the only person or one of the very, very few people who had any VC experience at the CME, because I actually started my career in VC in the late 90s. So when the CME launched this, we were kind of weird for a corporate venture firm because we were really looking at transformational technologies. So it wasn't about what was going to help the core business of CME necessarily. I mean, you had business development and corporate finance at the time focused on that. So the venture arm was really to think about, you know, what kind of technologies would become financial technologies and to really get ahead of that innovation game, as it were. And you know what? I drank that Kool-Aid right away. I really got involved, not just in what we know now around digital assets and blockchain, but we're investing in things like artificial intelligence and robotics and so on and so forth, even quantum computing. So again, this is why I said we were really, really weird at the time for a corporate venture
I remember you telling me years ago about the quantum computing thing, and you were selling me the whole vision of CME Ventures. I remember thinking, wow, this is A, super cool, and B, is CME, how long are they going to be able to do this? You know, because you think CME Ventures, obviously you think investing, let's say broker tech or things that are nearer and dearer to their core function in the marketplace, right? Is the board, are the investors, are they going to be cool with spending years on, you know, investing on these things that may or may not accrete, but are obviously long-term very fascinating? And obviously that became a bit of a challenge over time over there, Rumi.
I think it's a challenge for most corporate VCs, to be honest with you. I mean, so many that we know, whether it's now GV, right, Google Ventures or Intel Capital, many of them have just spun out of their parent. Other corporate VCs become much more involved with the business of the firm. And certainly I think CME and CME Ventures, you know, I left around, oh my gosh, 3 years ago now. But if you look on their website, I think they're still very active and involved in financial technology. But admittedly, as you know, the world of crypto is moving so fast. And if it's not your core business, then it makes sense that, you know, you really do need to focus more on what your core versus crypto can just, you know, can go nuts basically. And yeah, you're right. I don't think any CME shareholder wants the CME to go nuts. But I was definitely interested in pursuing this full time. And that's why I'm now with the group OUTLIER Ventures. But I'm also, you know, a board member or an advisor to a number of other blockchain funds and startups that are out there right now.
Well, tell us a little bit about OUTLIER Ventures, obviously a little bit more in your wheelhouse these days. What interesting stuff do you guys have in the portfolio? What are you working on over there?
Well, I hope it's interesting and relevant, but I think for many people it may seem like we've totally lost our minds. But for the most part, OUTLIER is really focusing on what we're calling the Metaverse. And I should say, it's not even just us that refer to the Metaverse. Even Mark Zuckerberg was saying that Facebook is going to be the next Metaverse company. And what we mean by that is really now the digital economy focused on creator worlds, whether that's gaming, whether that's media entertainment. You're seeing this now with non-fungible tokens, right? These NFTs that are out there. So OUTLIER has been really focusing on that, although we also do DeFi as well. Right, you've got to finance these gaming and virtual universes somehow, and that's probably not going to be coming from the traditional world. It will be coming through the decentralized financial world. So OUTLIER really today is like an accelerator. You can think about it like with Y Combinator, right? A very early stage pre-seed investor and developer of the next generation of tech companies. But in this case, it's the next generation of crypto companies, really focusing out far into virtual reality, alternate reality, gaming economies, NFTs, so on and so forth.
And of course, if that wasn't enough for you, Rumi, you decided to try to take my job. You're getting in the podcast game now.
Yes.
What madness inspired you to want to do that? And then tell us about your new show. What are you talking about over there?
Well, sure. Well, the madness that actually inspired me is my crazy belief that actually all of this does make sense. This combining of traditional financial worlds, even the traditional broader economy, as you know today, with this digital future that many of us are into, but in my opinion, not enough are. So, you talk about Bitcoin being 13 years old now at this point. How many people out there have really been able to take advantage, not even just from, financial trading and a profit and loss perspective, but in terms of like the broader economic opportunities of what blockchain and distributed ledger technology can provide? Not many. There's still so many bridges to be crossed over. And so for that reason, I wanted to start Open Out Crypto with my good friend, Colleen Sullivan, because Colleen also has a background like mine. Prior to CME, I was also at Goldman Sachs for a number of years, and so I've kind of bridged personally this world of traditional finance with digital finance. Colleen was prior to her time at the CMT Digital, and now she's going to be running Brevin Howard's new crypto arm called BH Digital. She was a lawyer at Sidley Austin. So both she and I think, consider ourselves to be bridges and really, really, really just want to help educate the broader public, policymakers, financial market participants about what crypto is, why it matters, how they can decipher the signal from the noise, and be able to, participate in the broader economic opportunities that we see in the future when it comes to digital financial innovation.
That's a fascinating area, something we like to focus on a lot here on the show, because you're right. Particularly, we see this here. We're kind of uniquely situated here in Chicago. You mentioned kind of your time at CME. We're located between all these different current and former exchanges, current and former trading firms who are looking for new products to trade and interesting new ways to trade them. And crypto kind of just landed like a bomb here in Chicago over the past, let's say, 5 or so years. And all of a sudden, it's just taken off. And we've seen all sorts of new ventures and traditional market making firms and trading firms and brokerages starting to look over there and say, there's interesting things going on over there. There's liquidity, there's volume, there's volatility. I can work with that. That's really all I need. And so that's been fascinating. And now as of course, price levels have shot up, we've seen more interest on the customer side, both institutional and retail. So that has driven even more interest in this space as a result. So you're right, that intersection, the overlap of the Venn diagram between the traditional derivatives world here in Chicago, the brokers, the market makers, the traders, and then the new kind of crypto space, a lot of them coming to this world not really understanding or having any previous experience in anything financial related. They're just coming at it purely from a technological or purely from a crypto space. Where those worlds clash and where they kind of move together seamlessly, that to me has been fascinating. And watching that evolution has been very fascinating to me. So sounds like you have the grist for many episodes to come there, Rumi.
I certainly hope so. And I really appreciate the fact that you, and I think you're the only one who's done this so far, has accurately pointed out the name of the podcast, which is really driven by open outcry, right?
Well, it speaks to everything, right? Open outcry and crypto coming together. It makes sense to me the second I see it. Maybe some newcomers, you're right, maybe a little.
I really appreciate that. I will say that we've been on pause for a couple of weeks. As I mentioned, Colleen is moving over to BH Digital. So as she's making that transition, we've put ourselves on pause a little bit, but we'll be ramping up again. So watch your back, Mark. You've got some competition coming your way.
Oh, I'm sorry. Did I accidentally hit the hang up button? How could I have done such a thing? But give us some greatest hits. What are some of the fun episodes? People, if they want to go check it out, where should they be looking? Any interesting guests or episodes that really spring to mind?
Well, certainly. Talking about Chicago, we had Peter Johnson from Jump Capital on, and he was talking a lot about his view of crypto and crypto credit in particular, which I thought was pretty cool. Also for Chicago or Illinois focused people, we had State Rep Margaret Croak, who was on. Believe it or not, Illinois is actually really pushing forward on trying to be a leader in blockchains. It's not just Wyoming, for example. And you have some really great policy leaders like Margaret who are out there. But we also have some other interesting and fun episodes coming up with Tom Chippis, who leads ErisX. I think some of your listeners might be familiar with ErisX. And also even VCs like Miko Matsumura from Gumi Crypto's Capital with, I think, a very interesting podcast. This will be our next one to be launched, but about why this all matters at all. Like, why even be in crypto? What's the point of it? So it's almost kind of an existential exercise, but I think it's always worth taking a step back when it comes to crypto, because like you said, there's so much activity, right? Ups and downs and volatility and crises and bubbles bursting, and then all of a sudden everyone's back. It's like, take a pause sometime, take a breath, and really think about why we're doing this at all. So that's also what we try to do at Open at Crypto, is be thoughtful, right? Not just share opinions, but think longer term about where this is leading.
And I said you're taking a break for a little bit. Is the plan to be every week, or what's the frequency of the show?
Every other week. And we also have a companion Substack, so blog posts that you will also find. So yeah, you can look at our latest episodes at openoutcrypto.com, but our Substack is openoutcrypto.substack.com, I guess. I mean, all of this can be led through our website. And if you also feel like even Googling my name, hopefully you can easily be led to Open Out Crypto as well.
And even though you haven't been busy on the show of late, you've been busy talking on some other venues out there, including on Yahoo Finance and even on a fireside chat about crypto. Still a little early for fires, even though the temperature is dropping down. But the virtual fireside chat is always fun. So any interesting nuggets or tidbits come out of those sessions, Rumi?
Well, certainly on the fireside chat, we were talking about, and this goes with the Global Investor Conference, we were talking about taxes, the web of crypto taxes. And this may not be fun for most people, but it's critical for everyone who's going to be in the crypto space because of the increasing complexity, because as well, I've been following what happened with the Senate passing the infrastructure bill and the House thinking about the infrastructure bill. There's a revenue line in there that the U.S. government thinks that they're going to be collecting from U.S. crypto companies. And the question is, where did that number come from? How is this? How is the U.S. government thinking about this? What is the IRS doing when it comes to crypto? So this area is becoming increasingly important, I think, for anyone who's doing trades in this space. So taxes is one of them. The other thing that we were talking about, you mentioned the Yahoo Finance, was the unicorn of financial products in the space, the ETF. When will the SEC approve a Bitcoin ETF or Bitcoin futures ETF? That's been a topic for years, right? People feel like we might be getting close now, but obviously that means a partial exercise in reading the tea leaves with Gary Gensler and knowing exactly what he might be thinking when it comes to showing leadership, but also protection for consumers in the crypto space. So that was the Yahoo Finance conversation.
Yeah, it does seem like that ETF has kind of been the albatross hanging around the crypto markets for so long now. When will we get the ETF? We really need the ETF to open the door to so many other venues. And I agree, it certainly would do a lot for that. I kind of wonder now, though, given all the price action we've seen, the broad acceptance in a lot of the investing public and even the institutional space on things like Bitcoin at the very least, and starting to get a little bit further afield into products like Ether. Don't even get me started on things like Doge. That's a conversation for another day. But it does seem like there is a broader acceptance. A few years ago, people said it's going to need the ETF to really get the mainstream acceptance. I kind of wonder if we're maybe a little bit past that now. Obviously, the ETF certainly would still be a huge milestone. But I'm curious, do you think maybe we've evolved a little bit past that? We've already got that mainstream acceptance, and the ETF would kind of be a nice cherry on top as opposed to the required main course to get the meal started.
I like your analogy. I agree. It's a nice cherry on top, and it's not going to be everything that you need to consume, right, in order to participate in the meal that is crypto. It is nice to have, but you're right. We've seen so much more adoption and understanding of crypto generally, not just Bitcoin, but the altcoins that are out there. I will also say this. I mean, even the past, 5-10 years, the number of younger people who are now in this space for whom Bitcoin is like totally, totally normal. They may have been like 7 years old or younger when Satoshi Nakamoto wrote his white paper. This has been part of their understanding of what finance and investing is since their childhood years or teen years. Right. So you can think about institutions adopting crypto, but even just the general public out there, more and more and more and more people think this is completely normal and they're already engaged in it. So yeah, you don't necessarily need an ETF, but I wouldn't be sad if it, put it this way, I'd be happy if it were out there. Like I think you would too. Anything that increases people's exposure and opportunity to invest in a way that makes sense for them in this space, I'm all supportive of. But yeah, it probably would have had a bigger impact around 5 years ago as opposed to today or tomorrow.
It would have been a game changer back then, but you're right. These days, kids, if they have a portfolio, chances are you're right. It's loaded with crypto and maybe a sprinkling of meme stocks. If they have,
That's right.
If they have any equity at all, it's maybe a game and an AMC, and
yes.
That's their financial exposure out there. Speaking of exposure, before we keep on rolling, you're talking about all these top level things in the world of crypto. The hot thing kicking off this week out there now is the Fed starting to do some more rumblings. This has obviously been on the radar for a while, but we're starting to hear some more rumblings about the digital currency coming out of the Fed. Was this a talking point at any of your recent events? And what are your thoughts on perhaps the impact this could have going forward?
It was definitely a talking point. Colleen and I in Open Out Crypto talked about stable coins and whether you really do need a central bank digital currency at all. I think, you have some people in the Fed who are like, you know what, you can let the private sector handle this type of innovation. Like, who says you need to have a central bank digital currency when you already have a number of stable coins that are out there doing what they do, not just in the United States, but all across the world increasingly. But I don't think that the Fed, this is just me speaking off the top of my head, but I don't think that the Fed necessarily has a unified view yet, right? So you have people like Randall Quarles, for example, who I think has been kind of clear about where he thinks the U.S. should be, or the Federal Reserve should be playing in terms of not necessarily needing a central bank digital currency, but rather trying to just be able to utilize the stable coins that are out there, that perhaps that private sector innovation can support the role of the dollar. But I don't know. I think it's still, well, we will see. But I'm not sure that everyone in the Fed necessarily agrees. And look, I think you just had 2 members have to step down anyways, right? Because of their stock trades and whatnot. So everyone's got issues, not just crypto related, but it can make us for some tough yet interesting times being in the Federal Reserve right now.
Well, Rumi, I appreciate you joining us here on the Crypto Hot Seat today. We'll have to get you back on more frequently than obviously it's been forever for until now. So more frequently than that, I can promise. But before we go, if our listeners are intrigued, they want a little bit more in their crypto podcast lives outside of the Crypto Rundown, where should they go? What should they do?
Well, definitely check out openoutcrypto.com. You can follow me on Twitter, on LinkedIn. I tend to be pretty good about noting what events are going to be coming up. And yeah, just overall, just stay engaged. For those who had never traded crypto before, the best way to learn about it is to just dive right in. The water is lots of fun. Ride those waves. You'll learn a lot, and it's worth it.
Rumi says, buy all the Doge, right? Hodl the Doge. That's what you're telling all of our listeners.
You said now. That. I did not.
Well, Rumi, I'm glad you could join us. Check it out, listeners. OpenOutCrypto.com is the blog. That will, of course, lead you to the links to all the shows that you, of course, find on all your major podcast platforms. As well as we keep on rolling, it is time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
It's time to explore the latest trending activity, trends, and developments across the world's leading crypto market. It's time for the Bitcoin Breakdown.
All right, everybody, welcome to the Bitcoin Breakdown, the portion of the show where we do just that. We break down the week that was and indeed still is over there on the big dog, a.k.a. good old BTC, and we're seeing some signs of life. Since our last show, listeners out there, we've been kind of languishing in this low 40,000 range. On our last show, we were pretty much at exactly about 43,000 coming into showtime, seeing a little bit more on the screen this week to the tune of 49,276. So up about 6,250 from this time last week. So a nice pop out there for the BTC crowd. We got as high as not quite 50,000, but pretty darn close to it. 49,140 or so. That was back on Sunday night. And the low for this week was right after our show last week, obviously, right around 40,000, about almost 800, 4796 or so. So quite the range on the week out there as well. Unfortunately, that range didn't really translate into a lot of vol there this week. On our last show, the hourly vol, by the way, all these analytics brought to you courtesy of our friends over there in Genesis Volatility. gvol.io is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. By the way, if you have questions about any of these analytics, how any of this stuff works, how you should be applying it, in the crypto space out there right now, how you should structure your trades around these things we're talking about here, the SKEW, the OI, the volatility, all that stuff. We've got a great Q&A coming up for all of our secret club members tomorrow over there at theoptionsinsider.com. That'll be Tuesday, I should say, October 5th for all of you listening after the fact. Unfortunately, you're going to miss it. But if you're in the secret club or if you're listening to this live or you're getting this very early before the Tuesday show, then, of course, get on over to theoptionsinsider.com/pro. That'll give you a chance to participate, ask questions directly to Greg Magadini, the creator of Genesis Volatility and the guy who analyzes all this stuff day in, day out. Of course, you'll get access to all the other pro Q&As we've already done as well, and access to all the future ones coming up, as well as our weekly Options Oddities show. That's a fun one. We break down the week's worth of unusual options activity. So a lot of great stuff. You get access to all the live. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go, especially for listeners of the show, especially this week. You're going to want to check that out. Now, let's go on out now to our friend Simon's BitVol, a.k.a. the Bitcoin VIX. Again, similar story out there. Not a huge amount of movement. It was 89% on our last show, 90% this week. So ticking up, but ever so slightly. SKEW almost unched. Actually, it is exactly unched from where it was this time last week. The SKEW last week, negative 1.5. This week, negative 1.5. You see where I'm coming from here, listeners? Not a heck. We had some range, but outside of that, not a lot of evolution from a vol or really a SKEW perspective. We're outside of underlying level. We're still at a similar level overall from where we were this time last week. OI ticking up a little bit out there in Bitcoin land from last week. Remember last week we saw September rolling off the board, took a lot of OI with it. Now that's starting to be replenished out there. The calls in Bitcoin up to just barely over 100K, 101,000 to be precise, up 12,000 from this time last week. The puts at about 47,600. That's almost literally unched from this time last week. So not a lot of change at all in the puts. All the gains in the OI have been to the upside, to the calls out there. Let's look at from a monthly perspective. Where are you folks lining up these days from an expiration perspective? And it's still December, leading the dance with about 64,000 contracts open right now. It's up about 5,000 from this time last week. So they're slowly rebuilding the OI that went away with September. I took a lot off the board. I took, many, many tens of thousands of contracts with it. Takes a while to replenish that, listeners. Number 2 spot now, we have October finally rolling into the top 3. It's got about 30,000 contracts, up about 5,000 or so from last week, already up to about half of what December has. So I expect to see October keep ratcheting up. People tend to like very near-term exposure these days out there in Bitcoin. So I wouldn't be surprised before it rolls off the board to see October take the number 1 spot. And then we have the October weekly expiring this week on the 9th with about 13,000 contracts to number 3. So obviously number 3, kind of a distant to number 3. It's really all about number 1 and number 2 right now. Getting on out there, like I said, from an overall notional value of the OI perspective, not a heck of a lot going on out there. It was about 6 billion worth of Bitcoin options open on our last show, about 6.5 billion if you add in all the other venues like CME and everything else out there. This week, it's up to about 7 billion, and you're talking about almost 8 billion, about 7.8 billion if you add in all the other venues. So ticking up a little bit, but still a long way to go to catch up to those other levels out there. In terms of action, though, in terms of volume, we actually did see some nice levels out here this week. The notional value, again, I hate the notional stuff, listeners, but it's kind of inescapable in the crypto world until we get even better numbers, until more exchanges are playing out here, and we can get more accurate and reliable contract volume numbers, which is where I really like to sink my teeth into. We kind of have to use kind of the old standby of notional volume. So from looking at it from that perspective, we did finally get back and hit the 1 billion notional value level again back on Friday. The first exactly 1 billion pretty much going up out there. We had flirted with it, as you recall, in the last couple of weeks, a couple of times. We got close on the 20th of September, 965 million. On the 24th, got close as well with 948 million, but haven't really hit it in quite some time. He had to go back to August 20th, the last time we flirted with it. I mean, before that, it was all the way back in May. So it's been a while since we've hit it consistently. Let's see. So far, it's only been once in the past week, but that's at least something to keep an eye on out there. So we did have some action out there. In terms of where that action is lining up, where are you folks putting on your size trades right now? What are these size open positions in Bitcoin options right now? Let's go take a look. Number 1 out there right now, still the par strike, the 100,000 strike. It's still leading the dance out there. There's about 11,700 contracts open on the 100,000 strike right now. It's up about 1,500 from this time last week. So again, slowly rebuilding. SEP obviously took some of those with it and now they're starting to rebuild that out there. Number 2 is the 60,000 strike, moving up the chart from lower position last week. So some folks getting more intrigued by the 60K strike. It's up to about 8,500 contracts, up a little over 2,000, about 2,100 from this time last week. Number 3, the 50K strike at about 8,200, it's up nearly 2,000 from this time last week. Number 4, the 80,000 strike. That one was much higher last couple of weeks. That has fallen off a little bit. It's got about 7,700 contracts open now. It's up about 1,100 from this time last week. And number 5 is a newcomer to the top 5. It's the 70K strike with about 7,500 contracts open. So pretty much it's all upside strikes all the time. It's the par strike followed by the 60K strike, the 50K strike, the 80K strike, and then number 5, the 70,000 strike. So still a lot of upside skewed strikes, which again, looking at the OI and where everyone's playing these days, it still is primarily in the calls. That's why we're seeing so much action on those strikes. Getting on out to CME, what's been going on their platform over the course of the past week, and not a heck of a lot. The most recent data we have coming out of their action was for Friday, of course. Friday was a pretty active day. Deribit hit their 1 billion, obviously notional volume level, and we saw decent numbers coming out of CME that day as well. The futures did about 11,500 contracts. Again, that's not a ton. They've done much more than that in the past, but it was a decent day, all things considered. The option's actually fairly light, only 38 contracts going up on Friday, which is surprising. The OI is also down a bit, down to about 850 from where it was this time last week. Again, expirations taking some of that with it. Same deal on the futures front. The OI and the futures is down nearly 1,000 to about 8,000 this week. Micro Bitcoin futures, they saw some decent numbers on Friday, about 43,000 going up on Friday. Of course, same deal. Expiration in the weeklies, taking some contracts and some OI with it. The OI in the micros is down to about 32,000. That's not about 8,000 from where it was this time last week. So overall, we're seeing OI coming in and not a ton of volume to replace it on CME. We'll see if that trend continues as we keep on rolling into the altcoin universe.
It's time to move beyond Bitcoin and find out what's moving the rest of the crypto marketplace. It's time to boldly venture into the altcoin universe.
All right, everybody, welcome to the altcoin universe, the portion of the show where we go a little bit beyond the world of the big dog BTC, except for right now, where we're going to break down the top 10. Then it's kind of hard to avoid the elephant in the room. Number 10 out there in the top 10. It's your old favorite. Perhaps it's your nemesis out there. Either way, you can't avoid it. It is Doge with, looks like about 30 billion, almost exactly open right now, followed by number 9, Polkadot at almost 31, just a tick under 31 billion. Number 8, USD coin at about 32.3 billion. Number 7, XRP back over the dollar, 104 out there this week, 48.8 billion in XRP. Number 6, it's Solana. I know a lot of you have interest in this one out there, up to about 50, almost 51 billion out there. Number 5, it's Tether. You know where that is. That's at $1. And it's at 68 billion worth of market cap out there. Number 4, Cardano, 70, almost 71 billion out there. Hovering, looks like around 2.25 coming into showtime here. Number 3, we got Binance Coin at 71, almost 72 billion. Then number 2 is ETH, right around 401 billion. And rounding out the top 10, of course, the big dog, Bitcoin, looking a lot bigger this week, 925, almost 926 billion out there. So once again, closing in on that 1T overall market cap level. Let's go on out now to the number 2 in terms of market cap. And of course, number 1 in a lot of your hearts. It is the old ETH coming into showtime. Again, we saw a bit of a pop in ETH as well. On our last show, we were still below the 3,000 handle. Looks like we were about 29.96, or just flirting with 3,000. Couldn't quite break it. We have since broken it. It's up about 420 handles since our last show. Coming into showtime, we're at about 34.15, almost 34.16 out there. So pretty much exactly 420 points to the upside. Saw a little bit of a range out there. Got as low as about 27.84 on the 29th, and it topped out on Sunday night at 34.85. In terms of vol, similar story to Bitcoin. We had a little bit of range out there this week, but it's not translating into a lot of vol. Last show, we had about 95% coming into today's show. It has come in a little bit, down to about 92%. SKEW, not quite the same. That has actually mitigated a bit. Last show, it was negative 2.25. This week, negative 0.5. By the way, all these analytics, same place, gvol.io. Just click on, move out of the Bitcoin section and go. In this case, we're going into the Deribit ETH. and you can kick your tires and light the fires out there till your heart's content. OI perspective, let's see what's open out there. Again, same deal as Bitcoin. September took a lot of ETH OI with it, slowly starting to replenish that this week. The calls up to 811,000 contracts, up about 23,000 from this time last week. The puts, 386,000, up about 44,000. So unlike Bitcoin, the puts are actually outpacing the calls this week, at least from a increase in OI perspective. That is interesting. The Bitcoin puts were unched. Nobody cared this week from a Bitcoin put perspective. In terms of the notional value, that OI is ticking up a bit as well. Last week, we were hovering around 3 billion. This week, it's up to about 4 billion. So again, slowly starting to replenish the volume we lost with September. And speaking of the notional value of that volume, we had one decent day this week. It was Friday, 461 million worth of notional volume going up on the tape out there. That's a lot less than we've seen of late. We've seen well over 600 million multiple times over the course of September. Not so much this past week, but again, it's a lot better than the days of midsummer when we were talking less than 150 million worth of notional going up many days. So that's a far cry from that, at least. So there is some paper, just not a ton out there. In terms of where you folks are lining up from an expiration perspective, quarterlies usually lead the dance in ETH, and that is the case again this week. DECE leading the dance, 490,000 contracts, up about 3,000. So not a ton going up in ETH. Looks like October is kind of taking a lot of that new paper with it. That's number 2 with 189,000. That's a new addition to our top 3, and it has already surpassed March, which was number 2. Now it's at 168,000. That's pretty much unched from the last few weeks. So it seems like all of the new OI has piled into October there. Not entirely surprising, given the moves we're seeing out there. People want a lot of gamma exposure. They want to be exposed to those moves right now. So October is the place to go for that type of positioning. Hence why October is slowly climbing the ranks out there. Let's see what's going on from a strike perspective. Where are you folks lining up? What are these size positions that are open in ETH options right now? Number 1, still the 5K strike with about 74,000 contracts open. It's actually down about 6,000 from this time last week. So some folks taking some 5K love off the table over there. Number 2, the 10,000 strike, even more optimistic, even more, shall we say, outlandish. Pick your adjective. They all apply to the 10K strike in ETH. 54,000 contracts. That one actually is up this week by about 1,000. So a little bit of opening on the 10K strike and a lot of closing on the 5K strike, which is interesting. Number 3, the 4,000 strike. It's up to about 51,000, up about 3,000 from this time last week. Number 4, the 8,000 strike. That's 44,000, about 300, up about 1,300 from this time last week. And number 5, the 7K strike with about 41,000 contracts opens up about 1,000 from this time last week. So 5,000 number 1, 10K number 2, then 4,000, 8,000, and 7,000 strikes. So like Bitcoin, all still predominantly upside for the most part, except for that 4,000 strike. That's the only really at the money type thing we're seeing out there these days. And it's not really at the money. It's still out of the money, but it's a lot closer than what we're seeing out there in Bitcoin land. Futures wise, on the CME front, ETH futures, again, similar story to what we're seeing on the big Bitcoin futures. That's a big, beefy contract, and it's hard to get a lot of paper going out there. It had decent numbers on the last trading day, which was Friday, about 6,100. So you're talking roughly half, a little more than what we saw on the Bitcoin future. So that's decent. And the OI is actually ticking up there, up about a couple of hundred, about 4,600 out there right now. So trending in the right direction, even if for a lot of you out there, that ETH future is just way too much to bite off. You need a micro out there as well. Speaking of micros, let's get to some of these smaller altcoin out there really quickly. Ripple having a nice pop, as I mentioned, at the top of the segment. They're up about 11, almost 12 cents from this time last week. And of course, you guys love yourself a little bit of Doge, up about 2.5 cents from this time last week. Come into today's show, of course, you guys like Cardano as well and all the others out there. Solana's having a good day today, up about 1.5%, all trading almost 171. Cardano giving it up a little bit today, off about 3.5%, down to about 220 or so out there. And Polkadot taking a little bit of a break today as well, down to about 31.25, off 365. No, you folks interested in more than just your Bitcoin and your ETH. In fact, your crypto questions mentioned just that. So let's get to those right now.
You've got questions about crypto. Who doesn't? It's time to find out the answers to your crypto questions.
All right, everybody, welcome to your crypto questions. Let's see if we can squeeze a few of you in here. First, we've got TS saying, I'm all in on the Solana show. Maybe call it the Solana hour. Yeah, that's in reference to our listener request for more Solana info on the show last week. Like I said, we're going to start keeping an eye on it more. We mentioned it briefly there in the altcoin universe, but it's going to be one we will be watching. We have been watching for some time, but we're going to start rotating into the show more. I wish everyone else who's had similar sentiment, I wish we could do an all Solana for an hour show out there. There's just not enough from a derivatives perspective or really anything to sink our teeth into out there. So when we see that volume start to materialize, we'll be there. We'll be the first ones to ring the bell and say, hey, come get it. Let's get out there in Solana and really sink our teeth into it. We love Bitcoin, we love ETH, and we love talking the derivatives on those, but we love to talk other products as well. So if there are more products doing active derivatives volume, we will love to sink our teeth into those. We're just waiting for that to materialize. So yeah, TS and everyone else who wants all Solana all the time, hey, we love them all. We'd love to feature them all. Right now, we're kind of limited to just talking about the price action, but there is hopefully more on the horizon for this name and a lot of others. And once that starts to materialize, we can start getting into the volatility and the SKEW and the OI and the hot strikes and everything else. Then we might have to revisit the show. It might have to be 5 hours long because there's so much to break down. But for now, it's more really kind of just keeping an eye on the price action and notable movements we'll talk about on the show. And then when we start getting interesting developments that could materialize into the derivatives, we'll get that on the show as well. And let's wrap it up here with Andrew. He just wants to say, I just wanted to say that I'm loving the crypto rundown. Well, thank you very much, Andrew. We do it for you folks out there who love this space and want more content on it. He says, I wish more people were out there talking about crypto derivatives. Seems like you're the lone voice in the wilderness. Thanks for fighting the good fight. Well, we just had Rumi on the top of the show. She's not really specifically talking the derivatives, but she is talking the intersection of crypto and traditional finance. So there are more people talking about them. And if you want just general crypto, there's a legion of those out there. But you're right. When it comes to the crypto derivatives scene, we are kind of the only game in town. We welcome more players to come into it. But for now, we'll keep fighting the good fight for you, Andrew, and everyone else out there who wants more crypto derivatives content. We're here for you every Monday, 2 p.m. Central, 3 p.m. Eastern live. Get it after the fact, of course, wherever you get our content. And if you're just listening to the Crypto Rundown, you really do need to subscribe to the full network, because I know for a lot of you, this stuff is new. You know, this options market, this options world is not your wheelhouse. And so we have content there that will help explain this to you. In particular, Options Bootcamp and Options Playbook Radio, 2 great shows that are nice companion pieces to this show. If you're a little bit confused after you hear me breaking down things like SKEW and open interest and volatility, and you're scratching your head saying, well, you know, what is he talking about? Options Bootcamp, Options Playbook Radio. If you can't find those, just subscribe to the full network. It's all there. Or you can go to our website. Our mobile app, also a great place to get all that stuff because it's got it straight from our online distributor. There's no middlemen. There's no website interface, anything. You can get all the episodes of every show you could ever want going back nearly 15 years now on the network. So a lot of content for you to sink your teeth into there. But thanks to Andrew, everyone who takes the time to write in. Glad you're all enjoying the program. Unfortunately, that music means it is time to draw to a close this week's Crypto Rundown. I want to thank our guest, Rumi Morales. Check out more about what she has cooking over there at openoutcrypto.com. Easy place to find all that. Of course, you know where to go to kick the tires and light the fires on all these analytics in the crypto space. Genesis Volatility. Let's go to GVOL.io is the place to go to kick the tires and light the fires. Great pro Q&A coming up with the co-creator, effectively, of Genesis Volatility. So you have questions about all this stuff in a lot more detail, how to put on trades around it, how it's performing in the marketplace. Tomorrow's pro Q&A is the place to be. You don't want to miss it. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to get your entry pass to that. And of course, I'll see you back here throughout the rest of the week for all this great content, and then back again next Monday, another episode of the Crypto Rundown. We'll see you then.
This program is brought to you by Genesis Volatility, also known as GVOL, home of institutional-grade crypto options analytics. Whether you're trading CeFi options or DeFi options, cryptocurrencies move. Use GVOL Analytics to analyze implied volatility, model realized volatility, structure positions, and unlock alpha. For more information, visit gvol.io. That's GVOL.io. You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network, the home of the Options Podcast. For more quality options programs, visit theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app available in the iTunes and Google Play stores. Select programs are also available via live stream at mixlr.com/options-insider. That's mixlr.com/options-insider. Don't forget to follow along with your favorite programs and submit your own questions for the hosts at twitter.com/options, stocktwits.com/options, facebook.com/theoptionsinsider, or via questions@theoptionsinsider.com.